Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love sharing good news and talking about health, and in this case, oral health, Healthy Smiles Initiative, and so much more. We're honored to be joined by Dr. Peter Buckley. He's the Chancellor with the UT Health Science Center. How are you doing?
Doing great, Jeremy. Thank you for the privilege.
Always a pleasure to have you on. We've had you on in the past talking a lot about UT Health Science Center overall. And let's do start with a little bit of context there, but we're going to dive in deep on oral health care and dentistry. But give us a little bit of context around, especially the statewide effort with UT Health Science Center.
So we're very fortunate that we have great support from our legislature, Jeremy. We are our public academic health center across the state. And while my image might tell you that we're in beautiful Memphis, home of great music, we're actually all across the state. So we've got a musical slogan that we're working on. Memphis is our home, but Tennessee is our campus, because we have campuses in technically in Nashville, in Knoxville, and in Chattanooga. And we exist in partnership with amazing healthcare providers in each of those cities, as well as the many healthcare providers in Memphis. So we do our work in partnership. And in fact, we've 880 additional clinical educational training sites all across the state. So we are truly statewide. In fact, we're the major provider of the clinical workforce for this state. And so we take that very seriously and are privileged to get the support that we get from our legislator.
Absolutely. And I mean, I look at you all as the past, present, and definitely the future of healthcare for the state of Tennessee and beyond. When you look at, you know, your talent really going into all these other places, but obviously the key is for Tennessee, really keeping the local talent here. We're going to talk why that's so important, especially in rural areas, especially around dentistry. So we recently had a big unveiling, a floss cutting for the Delta Dental of Tennessee building with the College of Dentistry. And so let's start with dentistry. Talk about overall, because UT Health Science Center, 75% of the dentists serving Tennessee are graduates of UT Health Science Center.
Yeah, so you've already produced one statistic that's very important. We are that for the state, but of course we also support our neighboring states. We're actually Arkansas's dental school as well as we support Mississippi. So we are truly a resource across the state. Like I told you about our organization in general, we are based in Memphis, but Tennessee is our campus. Exact same thing, Jeremy, for a dental area. So while we were together recently looking at our new dental building in Memphis, 2 weeks before that, the head of Delta Dental and our distinguished alumnus, Phil Wenk, we were together up all the way in Kingsport, working on opening a residency clinical program there. So we're all across the state feeling that need. The need is very acute. The national rate of number of dentists per 100,000 is 60 per 100,000. Tennessee comes in at 50 per 100,000. But as you indicated, the difficulties in rural areas, in Appalachia, it's 4 per 100,000. And so we come in 43rd in the nation in terms of the number of dentists overall. And so we're on a pathway. You mentioned our program, again, funded by our legislature and overseen by our Department of Health. Very grateful for that. It's somewhere upwards just over 90 million, the total program. It's done in association with Mahari, but we've responsibility over $53 million, 5-year Healthy Smiles initiative that directly relates to the building that you mentioned in Memphis, because the building allows us to increase the number of dental students from 100 where we were about a year and a half ago. We're now increasing. We just increased last year to 110. We're now going to 120. We just got approval. And of course, having a fantastic building enables you get that accreditation approval. And then we're intending to go up to 130. And so That's all well and good, but the second part of that is these relationships across the state and all these clinical training sites, so that we're not just training people in Memphis and then they stay in Memphis or they go to Nashville where there's already good dental care. Our responsibility is to help them fan out. So that grant enables us to do that. It even includes some opportunity for loan repayment. That's a further part of this, because as you know, the repayment, the debt of dental students is one of the highest of all specialties, higher than medicine, quite frankly. And so that's another part. People are a little reluctant to go into a rural area where both the insurance profile and just the volume of people may not be able to support their repayment of loans. So what I'm telling you is it's about the people, it's about the place, it's about the buildings, it's about a broader strategy. And we're very privileged and proud that we're anchoring that strategy for the state of Tennessee.
And I think that's where it's important for the public to understand the gap. And I was looking at some of the statistics, and the projection is around 800 or more dentists short when you look at the state of Tennessee. And so, as you mentioned, in some of these rural areas, there's a severe shortage. And so it's, how do you increase the number of graduates? How do you incentivize that side? And then how do you place them in certain rural areas so they can build those relationships? And then, as you mentioned, come up with the innovations around maybe loan repayments, things like that, to incentivize them to stay and build their network and their business in the rural areas, so that overall, all citizens across the state of Tennessee have access to oral health care. And I think that's where, when you look at a challenge across the state, but coming up with creative solutions and obviously having the collaborative, stakeholders and partners as a piece of that to be able to bring it to life, that's exactly what we're talking about with this Healthy Smiles initiative. And so talk about one of the things that was really interesting with the floss cutting is the fact that you mentioned, with any university, when you have great facilities, that attracts more talent. And so talk about the upgrade of the facilities, the building. When you look at the Delta Dental of Tennessee building, talk about some of the things that really are key highlights for the building and what that will allow you to do to attract more students.
So, so a couple of things. First of all, it's grafted onto an older building. And so we're not discarding resources that we have. As a public institution, with anybody's taxpayer money, you want to make the best of it. So we're putting the additional 45 million of this new building to work to augment and not discard what we already had. And the design of it is really very skillful as a wraparound. It's a huge building. It's 68,000 square feet. Very substantial, 4 floors, as I said, 45 million. And then in addition to what you would expect, of course, in a new building, state-of-art amphitheater, state-of-art small learning. Today's students like to learn in group together rather than in the full class format. And then the simulation center, Jeremy, is staggering. We have 135 pods, if you like, and they're individual simulation areas where people can learn the basics of dentistry. As you know, nobody wants to be tried out with their gums by someone who's not quite sure yet what they've done. And it's better to practice on a mannequin where you can get it right and you cause no pain and you hone those skills. It builds great confidence in people in our junior workforce. So that's another really good feature. Another thing that I'm really proud of that I think speaks to our role in the community is we have a special needs clinic. And that is, of course, right off the main entrance, just as you might expect, on the ground floor. It is as beautiful as anywhere else in the building. And then it's got all these phenomenal equipment that you have in the main of the rest of the building, but it's now tailored so that it will enable us to give care to some of our most disadvantaged people in our community. I'm very proud of that. Another aspect of that is when you want to recruit top talent, when you have a building like that. So we're now, Jeremy, we're in the business of recruiting a new director for our special needs clinic. they're gonna come running in to fill that position, and they'll also know and ask their buddies and know we traveled around the country to make sure that what we were building was truly state of the art. That's going to be a magnet for recruitment, as is the main building itself. The reality is, from a student point of view, we already attract, it's very competitive to get into school. So it'll of course add to the prestige of our school, and it'll definitely add to our recruitment, but we already recruit a high level, but it's really going to help really up the game in general. Another thing that it's going to do, Jeremy, that isn't the reason to build a building, but it's an extremely good byproduct, is it helps shape an urban university. It's right to the side of campus. It juxtaposes both its own building next door, but then the older, beautifully neo-Gothic buildings of the main administrative area. And over time, that's going to help us further develop. As you know, on the far side, we have a residential public-private development that we've supported that's now going to have storefronts. And so a good university is a good partner and an anchor in its community. And so this building's going to help us well beyond dentistry, but also illustrate that we're a progressive community and that we're part of building up Memphis itself and giving it a new facelift. I'm very excited about that.
Absolutely. You mentioned part of the community, and when you talk about being part of the community, all of this takes collaboration, just like you're talking about. And so going back to the Healthy Smiles Initiative, talk about the community partnerships. We mentioned Dr. Phil Wenk and Delta Dental of Tennessee, obviously a stakeholder in this as well. So talk about those pieces in terms of the partnerships that it's going to take to make all of this happen.
Yes. So you're so correct. It takes partnerships. I already mentioned one of our key partners in Meharry, but we also have other universities. So I mentioned we were up in Kingsport. Maybe that's to give you a good example of how it comes together. So we formed a partnership with East Tennessee State University. We're working with Ballot Health. We're working with the dentists there. Many of them are our alumni. That's another facet in building this out. When you have that alumni base across the state, it really, really helps. And then we've worked with Eastman Corporation, who've been an incredible convener and supporter. And then, quite frankly, the Chamber and the municipality of Kingsport. Extraordinary the support that we've got in that region, because they're playing the long game. And they're looking at how do they attract and retain high quality business and a workforce there, and being able to offer high quality dental care and not wait and depend whether somebody will go to Memphis and think will they come back to Kingsport, but really build that pipeline and then extend it over time. That's the opportunity. And we're all just part of that. No one part really anchors the whole thing. It's the conglomerate of all of that. And the support that we've had, the financial support, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, again, Delta Dental and their support, not just in Memphis, not just with this new building, but across the state. And then our alumni are incredibly supportive. They're excited by the momentum that we have. As you know, nothing succeeds like success. And when you have a $53 million state-supported project that has all the right elements to it and it is got a great mission to it, people want to get behind that.
Absolutely.
And so our collaborative base is going to grow over time.
When you look at the alumni and obviously the corporate support and the organizational support, the other universities, I think there's so many stakeholders that are all saying, hey, we want to be a part of this. Just like you said, when you start doing the right things, when you start powering the good, it attracts the right people to get involved. Touch on Dr. Phil Wenk. We've been mentioning him throughout, and I think it's important, especially at this phase, in terms of him being an alumnus, him being a chair of the UTL Science Center board, obviously CEO of Delta Dental of Tennessee, and throughout Healthy Smiles Initiative, the Delta Dental of Tennessee building, like there's a lot of common threads that come through Dr. Phil Wenk. And so talk about what he's meant to you personally, to UT Health Science Center, College of Dentistry. What does he mean to you all?
Yeah. So I know it sounds glib, but he's a larger than life figure. And his impact in this state is truly extraordinary. And it fits with what we've discussed earlier, Jeremy, in the sense that he practiced in Clifton for 20 years. His father was a dentist, and so he was attracted into the specialty. He worked, I was going to say he cut his teeth. He worked and learned his trade in a rural environment. And that experience has stayed with him all the way. He and his wife, Brenda, are extraordinary people. And they give not just to dentistry, but they give very broadly across their community. They're beloved in the community of Nashville. But in this role as CEO of Delta Dental, it takes him all across the state. And he's got the support, he's got the collaborative spirit, he's got the relationships. And so he's able to interdigitate with providers all across the state and bring out the best in what's in them and the best in what's in communities. And I see the embodiment of all of that in both the Healthy Smiles Initiative, which would not have happened without his leadership and his partnership. And certainly this building, as he mentioned the other day, was a dream come true, and the dream was his. And now it's one that's one of fulfillment for the state and for our organization and for Memphis. So he's an extraordinary person. He is a fantastic support and mentor for me. He's one of the 26 different bosses that I have in this job, because he's also head of our advisory board. And I can't tell you how important that is to have, when I'm new to this state in a role like this, to have a linked by arms partner that has all the experience, has all the knowledge, has all the political skills that are a tremendous support to our organization. And he is a great confidant, he's a great mentor, he's a great advisor, he's a great sounding board, and he's a great comrade in arms as we do things together. So I know you're a great supporter of his, but I'm right up there at the front too. He's a fantastic individual.
Well, and just like you've mentioned, everything is authentic. And, I love the fact that he does things because it's the right thing to do. And he's not afraid to step out and say, this is the right thing to do. And we're going to work hard to pull all these pieces together tirelessly to make it happen for the benefit of the community. I think the higher purpose that, just as you mentioned, he and his wife stand for, it really is, it warms your heart, but it's also one of those, it's a galvanizing force that you want to get behind, because he does things for the right reason, and he just constantly gives and gives and gives. And that permeates throughout the culture of Delta Dental of Tennessee as well. And so when you look at Jeff and Missy and the whole team, he's built an amazing culture that is extremely philanthropic, that pays forward. So these are all, amazing leadership lessons, but also too, when you talk about how do you create change, it's just like that. And so I think these are great role models for all of us to be able to say, do it for the right reasons, get involved, roll up your sleeves, help make a difference, and we're better for it as a community. So carry that into how can we help? So how can we help when you talk about the Healthy Smiles Initiative, College of Dentistry? What are the ways that the community can help you?
So a couple of things. First of all, it's important to have a presence in the community, so opportunities for us to be visible. That's why, Jeremy, I appear every moment you ask on your program, and I'm grateful for it, because we've a story to tell, and having the ability to tell that story, having platforms and audiences and opportunities to do that is very important. So we're available to take our role in the community and to be part of events, part of organizations. A presence is powerful. And again, a presence not just in Memphis, but to really play out this statewide presence. We have a message to tell. since you and I first met, we have now, we're on the cusp of completing our strategic plan. It goes before Phil and his board as head of our advisory board shortly. But not to dwell too long on it, but just to tell you about our vision. It's incredibly simple. 4 words: healthy Tennesseans, thriving communities. Before, we used to have a vision that was 4 to 6 sentences. I couldn't remember it. So this is enabling us to hone what we're doing. We need to be out in front of people. That vision cannot be realized in its own. It can only be realized in partnership and in collaboration. So we need to ourselves avail of opportunities. We clearly need support. You heard the first thing I said on this show is to thank our legislature. They give us great support, but there's never enough support. That's why you just see it as we moved and talked about the building. That's a realization ultimately of public-private and of donors really getting behind the state. We always need more of that. It allows us fuel our research. Some of the best research is done off pilot research that then goes on to attain federal funding. Scholarships are a huge issue. We talked about retaining a workforce, being able to bring people to places and be able to have them train and to have a diverse workforce is in large part a function of the scholarships that you can offer, because people may get a free ride scholarship elsewhere. And so that's another way that we can be supported. And then to continue that effort to really build in the communities that we are all across the state, and to work towards our mission of improving the health of Tennesseans, and to do that in a collaborative way, to focus on retaining and developing the workforce, to focus on bringing progressive care and the highest quality of care. That's all where we should be front and center on. And we need the support and help of Tennesseans, just as we give back to the Tennesseans. We need their support to embrace us on our mission. It's a noble mission. It's a fantastic mission. And sadly, it is needed because our health indices, in spite of all the effort, are still not where they need to be.
Well, how do we reach out? Where do we go? So mention the website. Where would you direct us to go to learn more and to get involved?
So www.uthsc.edu. We have a fantastic website. We are populating it with communications regularly, so it's not outdated. And then we have our whole leadership. And as you know from my willingness to be on your program, I'm happy to meet with anybody, anytime, anywhere. I'm excited about what's happening. I'm very excited about this state. It is a state that is going places. It's one of the few states across the country that's in a growing in-migration state. The finances of it are strong, and our future is terrific. And UTHSC is going to be right there in the middle of that future.
Absolutely. Well, you know this firsthand, but our niece is at dental school there at UT Health Science Center. She absolutely loves it. So we agree that the future is bright indeed because of you and your efforts and your amazing team. So Dr. Buckley, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure, Jeremy. Thank you.